Welcome back, Pack, and welcome back for another fantasy football mock draft video. This time at team number 6 for today's episode. Of course, another addition to the 10-team PPR series. This time, we're going at pick number 6. I went ahead and made sure all the picks before us were kind of easier and streamlined. That way I could have Justin Jefferson here, just so we have an example. I think team 5, team 6 can kind of go with Justin Jefferson. I've seen him go earlier, of course, but this time we're going to use this as an example. Take him at pick number 6 here, and it's obviously fairly simple. Justin Jefferson is going to have a monster year. We all know that by now, but as we go into the second round, make sure to leave a like, comment, and subscribe down below. Let me know, I said last video, let me know your values. Let me know who you think is being taken too high and are your bust for this season, because there's definitely a couple players that I'm a little worried about. That being even Nick Chubb, kind of an example going in the second round. You know he's going to have good upside, and he's a great running back, but you don't know how much he's going to have, especially how good the offense will be with Jacoby Brissett being their main guy at quarterback. So it's not going to be that great. In my opinion, one of my busts, but yeah, let me know down below in the comments. But obviously, Jonathan Taylor, Christian McCaffrey, Derrick Henry, Eckler, kind of see them go. I chose Kupp over Justin Jefferson here, just so we could pick Jefferson in this draft. We chose Kupp in the last one to see how that mock would work with him. And then we go Dalvin Cook, Najee Harris, Jamar Chase, Stephon Diggs, and Devontae Adams. That turn pick is crazy. Alvin Kamara, Nick Chubb, and Tyreek Hill. And then back to us, and obviously, I'm liking the running back room here, and starting out with a receiver, I really like a top running back, and there's still quite a few that I'm really okay with. And looking at the board, I'm going to take Joe Mixon. It's got the highest value for us. It's a pretty easy choice there. There could be consideration for Travis Kelce. If obviously in a PPR league, Travis Kelce is going to get you a monster amount of points, but I'm just not sure at the running back value I'll get coming back. And we got Saquon Barkley coming back, and that's someone I would highly consider here, but we'll have to take a little time to see what we want. Okay, so after Joe Mixon goes CeeDee Lamb, Travis Kelce, DeAndre Swift, Aaron Jones, Deebo Samuel into the third round. Javonte Williams, Leonard Fournette, Keenan Allen, Josh Allen going in the third round this time, and Mike Evans. So Saquon Barkley still staring at us in the face, and I think for the value, Saquon Barkley could still be an absolute monster. He's going to be the only back in New York. Like, I am so in on Saquon Barkley. I have no idea why he's falling so much in a lot of drafts. And I think having Saquon just solidifies that backfield. Obviously, he has a slight injury concern, but every running back will in the NFL. So, and you know, that being said, I just had a draft this past weekend picking Christian McCaffrey at pick number 2 that I got randomized. And, you know, everyone's like, oh, you got to be scared. I was like, he had 3 seasons in the NFL where he was basically fully healthy. And the last 2 seasons has been hopefully an illusion to, you know, being injured and being a glass door. Hopefully he's kind of back on track this season. And he's just the #1 player in fantasy, in my opinion, when he's on the field and healthy. So I picked him at number 2. I got Kamara in that draft in the second round. So I was pretty happy with that one overall. But at pick number 6 here, I haven't done anything towards the end and towards the later stages of the draft, especially with taking receivers first. So this is a difficult decision for me. I really love Mark Andrews. I talked about that a little bit in my last video. Mark Andrews in the third round is amazing. I mean, him and Lamar are going to do great. Rashad Bateman's kind of the only other target in Baltimore that's going to get value. But I also love Rashad Bateman in the 7th or 8th round. I think he just has a crazy upside there, especially with Lamar going in the round before him. You can get that stack and have just an incredible team. It's really hard to pass on Saquon Barkley here, and I feel like for most people watching, they wouldn't, so I'm going to take Saquon Barkley here. I just think it's a smarter pick. I would have loved if Mark Andrews made it back round. Even Kyle Pitts, I definitely would have considered on the way back, but unfortunately, neither one of them made it, and George Kittle's out of the contention here. And I already talked about Darren Waller. I'm just not sure. He's obviously missed a lot of time. He hasn't played since the end of July. We have no idea what his status is. He could be fully healthy and be totally great for week 1, but we just have no idea. He hasn't played with the team, and obviously in that entire time, Devontae Adams and Derek Carr have been building their rapport they had in college together, so it's kind of scary to think about what Devontae Adams' numbers are going to be, which is crazy to get him as the 5th receiver in your draft. So I would highly suggest Devontae Adams over Darren Waller, especially. I'm not a huge Darren Waller fan, especially, you know, with the targets that are going to be coming in. I mean, Devontae Adams is going to take 150 targets away from him. Hunter Renfrow was incredible and will be incredible. So you got to just think about that the entire time. But Mark Andrews, Kyle Pitts, George Kittle, tight ends all off the board. And I'm not taking Darren Waller, so we're going to go tight end a little bit later in this draft. We'll see if we take one early, trying to change up the strategy a little bit. Maybe you guys all love Dalton Schultz and you want to take him in the 5th round, we'll see if he falls back to us, if that's something that we want to consider. But after George Kittle in the 4th round, now A.J. Brown, Cam Akers, Justin Herbert, and Patrick Mahomes. And Zeke is still here, which he has been dropping a lot. And for good reason, I don't know if he deserves to be not in the 3rd round at least, but Zeke obviously lost, Dallas lost their best tackle on their team, Tyron Smith, who was just insanely incredible for that team. And it's a huge hit not having him on the roster. And I talked about it last video. They lose a whole yard per carry for their running backs without him on the field. So it just means that the running game is going to be a lot less efficient. And if Zeke's splitting time with Tony Pollard, maybe you're targeting Tony Pollard later in the draft. Maybe you just don't target them at all for the price you're paying at the very least. And that's why you see Zeke dropping so much. You might be considering, if I go with 3 running backs here, I'm locked in. But I'm also kind of shying away a little bit from Ezekiel Elliott because, the team's going to be great. The offense is going to be great, but it is a big hit to their rushing commitment on offense. So it's definitely something to be worried about. Now we go into the 4th round, a couple of quarterbacks going off the board. I'd love Lamar, maybe at the 5th, 6th round. He might go earlier than that. His ADP seems to be rising, especially on sleeper. So this might be a spot where you have to consider a pick for Lamar Jackson. But I'm just not a fan of early QB because I know Jalen Hurts, Russell Wilson, Kyler, Tom Brady. There's just so many great quarterbacks that are going to get similar numbers that it's just not worth wasting a pick where you could get an insanely good receiver or running back. And, normally it would be probably Ezekiel Elliott here, but I'm going to take Michael Pittman as I mess it up. Michael Pittman, just so much upside in Indianapolis. Matt Ryan, we know what he's been able to do with Julio Jones, so we know his number 1 receiver is going to be incredibly good. And Michael Pittman had a great year last year with Carson Wentz, so that should tell you enough about that. But after us goes Darren Waller and then Ezekiel Elliott. T. Higgins, Travis Etienne, Breece Hall, who I was also considering. But I feel like I'm locked in with Mixon and Barkley, so we'll see. But McLaurin in the 5th round, Deontay Johnson, David Montgomery, DJ Moore, and Josh Jacobs. And back to us at the 5-6. And this is a tough spot here because we know if you're looking at the draft board, and it's something I highly recommend you doing during your draft while it's going. I already talked about knowing who's in your draft, what fans of those teams are going to be in your draft. Like I said, I have a league full of Denver Broncos fans, so I know Javonte, I know Courtland Sutton, Jared Jeudy, and Russ are all going to go a lot earlier in the draft than they're supposed to be because it's just a little bit a fan favorite behind them, so people are going to reach for it. And so that's something I want to make sure. Obviously, this is against CPUs, so they probably don't have favorite teams. I don't want to put it against them, but in this draft, we're looking at least what the layout of quarterbacks, tight ends looks like. In front of us, there's 3 teams with tight ends coming on the way back here. So if we want a tight end pick later maybe in the 7th on the way back up through the snake, that could be a spot we can consider for a tight end because we know 3 teams in front of us don't need a tight end. So we can wait all the way back until the 8th to get that second tight end pick and lock in something at the 7-6. That way we can, you have to look in front of you. And we also see Patrick Mahomes and Justin Herbert in front of us. And looking ahead of that, I see Lamar, and this is my whole discussion here, is that Lamar Jackson, I really hope can make it back to me in the 6th round. And it's kind of something I'm worth risking a choice on here because if you're looking over at the other 2 picks, Patrick Mahomes and Justin Herbert taken in front of us. So they're not going to take a second quarterback. I'm looking at Team 9. They probably want another receiver. They could probably take Lamar there, and if they do, I'm totally fine with taking Jalen Hurts in the next round or in the 7th round. And then as Team 10 looks, they extremely need a running back. So they're probably going to reach for someone like Antonio Gibson. And that's my choice now is, do I take Antonio Gibson, make Team 10's team a lot worse? Because after Antonio Gibson, it is a minefield of running backs, and it's not going to be a pretty choice. And obviously Antonio Gibson with the really terrible news to Brian Robinson, I hope he recovers safely. People in the fantasy community are just kind of stupid for the things they've been saying about Antonio Gibson, his upside and everything. It's a bit annoying when someone gets injured or in a extreme case like this that people are even caring about fantasy football. The dude got robbed and shot. Let's focus on his safety and recovery instead of his fantasy outlook, please and thank you. But it obviously, for Antonio Gibson's sake, he was having some struggles in the preseason and now has a decent chance to start rising a little bit due to that unfortunate shooting that happened to Brian Robinson. So it does mean Antonio Gibson's rising a little bit and might be in consideration for running back 3 here. And like I said, I want to wait to see if Lamar makes it back to us onto the turn pick. And looking at receivers, there's a couple here that I like. Mike Williams is okay. One of the Denver Broncos I'm okay with. DK Metcalf, I'm I'm probably out on the Seattle offense completely with Geno Smith or Drew Lock. Drew Lock is horrendous. We know that from a Denver fan's perspective here. He was not fun to watch in real life, and he actually got Case Keenum got booed off the field at home at Mile High, but that's a different story for another time. Here, because of how the running back drop-off looks and everything, I'm going to take Antonio Gibson and his upside, and we're going to hope Lamar Jackson falls back to us. And damn, Team 10 got the stack for Baltimore. Lamar Jackson and J.K. Dobbins taking over there, which is unfortunate because really hoping Lamar came back to us. Now I have a choice. We'll probably take a quarterback in the 7th round instead of here because of the options we could still have. But Jalen Waddle, Jared Jeudy, Courtland Sutton, Lamar Jackson goes to Team 10 with J.K. Dobbins, DK Metcalf, Mike Williams, and Dalton Schultz. So Dalton Schultz, I would have definitely considered here at the 6-5. He's obviously going to have tremendous upside for Dallas. Dak might be under more pressure without Tyron Smith at left tackle. So Dalton Schultz could get an insane amount of receptions. So definitely don't underrate Dalton Schultz because he could finish as a top 3 fantasy tight end this season. It could be like Kelsey, Andrews, Schultz, Pitts. That's kind of how I see it in my head. I think Schultz could finish that high in fantasy this season because we know Dallas is going to be an extremely potent offense, and their defense is not going to be as good as it was last year. So their offense will be probably out on the field a little bit more this season, and they can score a little bit more points that way. So Dalton Schultz, I would highly take a look at going into the 6th round, especially. But now we have a choice. We have Joe Burrow, Kyler Murray, Jalen Hurts, Russell Wilson. Like I said, there's just a lot of value there. A lot of running upside, of course, with Kyler Murray and Jalen Hurts. So I'm going to see how it rolls back to us. Obviously, only one quarterback in front of us going back in the draft now, which is Josh Allen. So there's 4 more teams here that could take a quarterback, but I highly doubt it. Joe Burrow, Kyler Murray will probably go, which means Jalen Hurts will come back to us, hopefully, in the 7th round. So that's going to be my strategy for right now. We'll take Jalen Hurts, hopefully, in the next round, which means right here, we're going to be looking at wide receiver. And running backs, I have 3 already that I'm pretty confident with as far as their workload's going to go. Joe Mixon and Saquon, workhorses. We know they're going to be very good. And if they get injured, neither one of their backups are going to be drafted, so you can take those off the waiver, hopefully, in the future, if obviously that comes down to an injury. And Antonio Gibson obviously had some struggles in preseason, but will rise a little bit now. And now we have to look. I know I love A.J. Dillon here. I love Miles Sanders. I've talked about it plenty. Apparently, he has a hamstring issue, which is not great. That's hamstring issues we know lurk a long time. Also, another pick here that could be considered is T.J. Hawkinson. He's going to have another decent season with Detroit, and he's kind of their number 2 target with DeAndre Swift kind of in the mix as well. So you know that's going to be a decent option there. But tight end, I just don't know if I like picking a mid tight end here when I could get some good wide receiver value in other places. And that wide receiver value could be someone like Allen Robinson, who's going to be the wide receiver 2 on the Los Angeles Rams and is going to have a great offense. Someone mentioned, obviously, in my Cooper Cup last video, the Matthew Stafford elbow injury is a concern. That is something to be aware of and maybe drops your choices, especially on Cup in the 1st round or Allen Robinson later in the 6th. And for that reason, I'm going to shy away because he's the 2nd receiver on that team. I know he still has Stafford and it's going to be great. I'm definitely not picking Amari Cooper. You already know how out I am on the whole Cleveland offense. I don't think Amari Cooper will have much value. And I'm not targeting Marquise Brown because in later drafts, later in the draft, I'm going to try and get DeAndre Hopkins. So I do not want Marquise Brown. I want D-Hop when he comes back off his suspension and is just going to dominate, hopefully, once again in the league. So for me, it's Brandon Cooks, Michael Thomas, Amon-Ra. That's kind of the 3 receivers I'm currently looking at. Obviously, Michael Thomas, if he's back to normal, he'll be one of the best receivers in fantasy football once again. But, he's battled some injuries. We already know that coming off a big injury. And he's with Jameis Winston now, so that could change the room a little bit. And I like our receivers already, but I'm going to go with Brandon Cooks, a very safe option. Talked about him in a few videos before. But he's going to be on a decent team. Davis Mills didn't look too bad, and Brandon Cooks is going to be his number 1 receiver. So I think that's a fine choice there. I was really hoping Michael Thomas maybe made his way on the way back. Amon-Ra did, but not Michael Thomas. Jalen Hurts goes. These CPUs, man. Jalen Hurts ends up going high above his ADP. That's probably not high. 7th round is totally fine. And that should have been in consideration for Kyler, honestly, in the 6th round there. Having that kind of opportunity and upside, especially if I want the DeAndre Hopkins stack later. That's something to consider. But now we'll wait on quarterback. Something I recommend you should do in your drafts. Wait on quarterback. There's just so many good options at quarterback. Don't be one of these people taking Josh Allen, Patrick Mahomes, Justin Herbert in the first 2 or 3 rounds. You're wasting you're gonna have a great quarterback, sure, but you're wasting a spot on a huge upside receiver or running back that you're gonna desperately need later in throughout the season. Actually, you can always get a quarterback that can give you 15, 20 points, like Kirk Cousins or Derek Carr later in the draft. So it's fine to miss out on one of the insane quarterbacks, and you'll have, like I said, there's so much value with all the way from Lamar all the way down to probably Matthew Stafford, who's a little bit injured right now. Even Trey Lance, obviously, in consideration there. But we'll take quarterback a little bit later now with that choice. Amari Cooper still staring at us in the face, as well as TJ Hawkinson, AJ Dillon, Amon-Ra St. Brown, Thielen, Mooney. All of these players, all the way, like all of 5 of these, not Amari Cooper, I'm taking an eye on. And I haven't actually gone for a tight end kind of in the middle of the draft strategy. TJ Hawkinson dropped a decent amount, so I'm going to take TJ Hawkinson here. We know, of course, and this is something I literally just said to look out for, I should have not taken a tight end because all 4 teams in front of me have a tight end. So they're not going to take a tight end here. I should have taken a wide receiver with upside like Amon-Ra St. Brown or the other two I was talking about, or a running back that could give me value, because I know TJ Hawkinson will still drop back to me because all 4 people in front of me have tight ends. So a bit of a mistake on my part, but you know, that's why you got to pay attention at all points in the draft. We have 3 running backs, 3 wide receivers, and TJ Hawkinson at tight end. So we're locked in there at tight end. I don't think I'm going with the Jared Goff stack, but TJ Hawkinson is going to be great. And obviously, taking TJ Hawkinson, if we took him on Amon-Ra St. Brown, causes a little bit of problems, obviously, for receivers on a average Detroit Lions offense. Staring at me in the face, though, D-Hop, Rashad Bateman. Those are kind of the options here. Russell Wilson does go. And Tom Brady, I want running upside normally, so I don't really want Tom Brady. Obviously, he's one of the greatest, if not the greatest of all time at that position. But we have Dak, we have Aaron Rodgers, Trey Lance if we want some running upside later, and Kirk Cousins, who I love. I absolutely love Kirk Cousins. That might be someone I still target in this draft. And if we're looking for a stack, Matt Ryan is potential. Of course, Kirk Cousins with JJ would be a great stack to have. And so here, running backs, Kareem Hunt, Cordell Patterson are 2 very good value running backs that could be pretty good backups. But I don't know if I need that. I'm pretty sure I'm sticking with, in a PPR league, I'm sticking with Joe Mixon and Saquon Barkley, and we're going to see how Gibson floats. But I'm probably just going to put Cooks in like that flex position or a different receiver. And in that case, we have DeAndre Hopkins we could wait on, or Rashad Bateman, who's going to be receiver 1 for Baltimore. So I'm going to take Rashad Bateman here. I just think his upside is incredible. Obviously, DeAndre Hopkins goes right after us. That's to be expected. And I was talking about that. That was my main decision there, was DeAndre Hopkins or Rashad Bateman. We have 3 great receivers that I'm going to use in a constant rotation, if not Michael Pittman and Justin Jefferson locked in. So you don't necessarily need a receiver there. You can go for someone like DeAndre Hopkins, who is going to miss the first 6 weeks of the season, but come back and be a wide receiver 1. Or you could take just, I don't know if a safer option, but take Rashad Bateman, who should be the receiver 1, and one of the only receivers Baltimore has in that locker room. So I think that's a fine pick there. In the 8th round, after DeAndre Hopkins, goes Gabriel Davis, Dallas Goedert, Kenneth Walker, Dawson Knox, struggling there, Devonta Smith, Kareem Hunt, Tom Brady, Chase Edmonds, and Drake London go. Chase Edmonds is obviously another running back I was heavily targeting. Yeah, it's a pretty much a no-brainer. We're going to go with Cordell Patterson, but it would have been a consideration, Chase Edmonds or Cordell Patterson here. Chase Edmonds has been flying up in ADP as well, so that's someone to keep an eye on. Chase Edmonds, people are starting to realize the value of Chase Edmonds, and you're getting probably a solidified running back 1 in Miami who his coach loves him. He loves the scheme. Like, it's everything matches up there in Miami. So Chase Edmonds, a great pick there from Team 4. But now back to us at the 9-6. And of course, at running back, we have 3 that are pretty good. We don't want to take a 4th or a 5th wide receiver before we probably take another running back. So running back or wide receivers we're probably okay on. If you're in consideration here, Deebo Samuel's having a couple of issues, a little bit of a knee injuries kind of arose. He should be okay for week 1, but Brandon Ayuk here late, of course, is a fantastic pick. Same with Allen Lazard, who I ended up choosing. If this was similar to my draft, I'd probably take Allen Lazard here, and this would be a Rashad Bateman and Allen Lazard, very closely similar. But I'm going for a running back here. Cordell Patterson should just have a lot of upside, especially in a PPR league. He's a little bit older, and we don't know how good the Falcons offense will be, but Cordell Patterson out of the backfield should get a lot of the work, if not a majority of it. So Tyler Algier might take a little bit from him, but Cordell Patterson still for sure the locked-in 1. And after him goes Devin Singletary, Elijah Moore, Tony Pollard, Brandon Ayuk, Rashad Penny, Allen Lazard, Treylon Burks, and Tyler Lockett. So back to us once again for a choice here. Could we take a quarterback? We have 3 picks left. We are even on running backs for a piece for receivers as well. And I'm liking both rooms so far. And we're just going to try and take a look at value here. And right now, value is probably currently situated in quarterback if we're going at the ADP level here. But you obviously can go for the upside. Hunter Renfrow, I was already talking about. If you're going to target a receiver that is not Darren Waller, which I skipped out on, you're going to be targeting Hunter Renfrow. And for the value right now, I just think there's no one else close to it. Because he's just going to be a tremendous slot receiver, and Derek Carr is going to hit him with Devontae Adams is getting triple teamed because the rest of the defense is terrified over there. Obviously, some quarterbacks go. This is probably not what would normally happen in a one quarterback league, and you're going to go for a quarterback on the bench way later. But well, now we have a tough decision to make, so we'll see how that goes. But after Renfrow goes Ramondre Stevenson, who was also in consideration. Obviously, if you haven't already heard, he's in a James White-esque role on the Patriots, which we know how successful that role is. He's a very good running back, and he's a great pass catcher. So he's going to be in a very good spot in that backfield. And to get him in the 10th round, I think that is a fantastic choice. I'm pretty out on Melvin Gordon. I think it's going to be like 65-35 to start, and I just think they're going to phase Gordon out of the season. I think it's going to be Javonte Williams pretty heavily towards the end of the season. So I am not really choosing him even as a Denver fan. You know, he did great, but I think it's Javonte all the time. After him goes Robert Woods, Zach Ertz, Matthew Stafford, James Cook, Dak Prescott, Aaron Rodgers, Chris Olave, who's another receiver I was looking at, but Renfrow, I feel like if Olave is the number 2 on the Saints, he is a rookie. You know, we don't know his rapport with James Winston. If it's Michael Thomas is there, he will take a lot of that. Same with Alvin Kamara. So not too worried about missing out on Chris Olave here. And then Freiermuth goes for tight end. And back to us, where we have this consideration at a quarterback. And we can kind of still wait, but if teams are starting to take second quarterbacks, this would be that kind of worry zone, I would say, that you should probably take a quarterback. You know, Aaron Rodgers, Dak Prescott. Would have loved either one of them. Stafford, obviously, with the elbow injury. I'd still love him, but who knows if he is going to be healthy to start the season. He obviously has had this injury for a while and has had a little bit of repetitive injuries, so something to keep an eye out on for sure. But just looking at the overall value, Christian Kirk this late could be fantastic, but we already have 5 receivers, 4 running backs, so if it would be an option here, it would easily be Dameon Pierce, and I'm not going to give it a second thought. I would definitely like Trey Lance, but Dameon Pierce should be going, and actually went in my draft, the one I have done so far, in the 7th round. So Dameon Pierce is flying up the ladder, so I was extremely lucky to get Dameon Pierce here at the 11-6. If you don't know anything about Dameon Pierce, you're crazy. You haven't been keeping up at all with the preseason, but he's had insane hype for Houston. I know we have Brandon Cooks, and I know it's the Houston Texans offense, but you have the wide receiver one without a doubt, and you have the running back one probably without a doubt as well, because Marlon Mack and Rex Burkhead aren't going to compete as much because Dameon Pierce looks explosive out of the backfield. So yeah, I would say, since Dameon Pierce is rising so much, obviously the fantasy community loves him. You might have to try and take him in the 9th where Cordell Patterson went. I would assume maybe Cordell Patterson doesn't get to us in that kind of a situation, and you have to make a decision on Dameon Pierce there. So to get him in the 10th or 11th, snag him up right away. No questions asked. Move on with your draft. But after Dameon Pierce goes Trey Lance, Garrett Wilson, Gesicki, Christian Kirk, Derek Carr, Kadarius Toney, Michael Carter Jr., and George Pickens. And now back to us. We need a quarterback here to finish the draft. And fantastic enough, Kirk Cousins makes it back to us. And I'm totally okay. Kirk Cousins is a very safe quarterback to have. And he's going to be fantastic with our Justin Jefferson stack. So really like the way the draft turned out. We went quarterback very last pick to kind of give you an idea of what might happen. Even if people start to take double quarterbacks, you'll still have good value. Like I said, in Kirk Cousins, who's going to be a pretty safe option in a pretty good Minnesota offense. So you know he'll hit Justin Jefferson, especially now that we have that stack. It's going to be a very nice one to have. It's something we were kind of targeting once we got Justin Jefferson early. But let me know what kind of picks, kind of decisions you would have made differently. We have quarterback, of course, Kirk Cousins. Running backs, Joe Mixon, Saquon Barkley, and Antonio Gibson are kind of our starters, with Cordell Patterson and Dameon Pierce as our bench spots. And then at wide receiver, Justin Jefferson, Michael Pittman as our starters, with Brandon Cooks, Rashad Bateman, and Hunter Renfrow as our backup receivers. And at tight end, of course, TJ Hawkinson to flush it out with, like I said, a strategy I haven't done before. I haven't really gone for one of these mid tight ends picks, Dalton Schultz or TJ Hawkinson, in any of my mocks. So having TJ here kind of gives us an ideal look at what goes in front of us, what kind of value we'll get, because going TJ Hawkinson there, I miss out on Kyler Murray or Jalen Hurts potentially if you're going in the 7th round, if they don't go right there, of course. But that's something that's keep an eye on for sure. So make sure to leave a like, comment down below. Like I said, leave your busts in the comments down below. Who you think is going too high for their pick and is not going to pay off. Thank you guys so much for watching. We'll see you next time.